friends, it's Christy. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be making a card using the Lawn Fawn Mom Plus Me stamp set, as well as the Perfectly Plaid Spring 6x6 and one pattern from the Really Rainbow 6x6. I've stamped my owl out in Memento Tuxedo Black ink, and I did the tree stump in Lawn Fawn's Walnut ink, and I'm going to be coloring both in with my Copic markers. For the Mama and Baby Owl, I'll be using E40, E41, E43, E44, and E47. I'm first going to concentrate on the Mama Owl, and I'm laying in my shadows with that darkest shade, the E47. I'm doing a little bit down the back side of her, and then on the bottom side of her wings, and then on either side of her head, just to give it a little more rounded appearance and help it kind of come off the page. Then I'm going to blend all of that out with the E44. Then I'm going to bring in the E43, and that is going to be my lightest for this part of her body. So I'm just making sure to blend that really well so that I have a nice soft transition and I don't have any harsh lines remaining. I do want there to be a good bit of contrast between the mother owl and the baby, so I'm actually going to use the E43 as my darkest on the baby, and I'm just going to do a little shading on the top of her head and then right on her body, right under the mama's wings, and then I'll blend that out with the E41. And then the E41 is going to be my darkest shade on the mama owl's face, so I'm doing a little shadow on either side, just like I did on the top of her head, and then I'll blend that out with the E40, and then I'll use the E40 for the baby owl's face. And then I just went back and added a little bit more of that shadow with the E41 on both of them. I went outside the lines just a little bit on that one wing, so I'm just cleaning that up with my colorless blender. And then I'm going to bring in YR14 for their beaks and the mama owl's feet. And I thought I was going to just use the one shade, but I decided I did want a little bit of shadow, so I brought in the YR18 and added a little of that. I'm not going to even blend it out since it's such a tiny area. And then I'll use RV10 to give the mama owl some rosy cheeks. So even though the tree stump is already stamped in brown, so it has some color to it, it still looks pretty flat compared to the owl once it has all that nice shading. So I like to add a little bit of shading to the tree stump as well. So I'm just going over some areas where I want there to be some dimension with that E25. And then I'm going to blend that out with the E23, just trying to create a little bit more depth there. I'll also add a little bit of that E23 to the top on the edges of the stump, and then I'm going to fill in all the rest with the E21, including that little cutout. And I did stamp the I Heart You sentiment in that little cutout. There are 3 different options, but that's the one I went with. I trimmed down my pattern paper with the Lawn Fawn Inside Out Stitched Rectangle Stackables, and I'm going to glue that to a plain white panel. And I'm doing that just to add a little bit of stability to that pattern paper since I want to pop this up on foam tape later on. I'm going to cut a circle window out of this using the Lawn Fawn Circle Stackables dies, and that circle I can save for another project. And I wanted to create kind of a halo effect on the inside of my window, so I trimmed out a circle with the pink stripe using 2 more of those Lawn Fawn Circle Stackables. I just used one size larger and one size smaller than the one I used to cut the window. I'm going to add a bead of glue on the back of that plaid panel, and then I can just turn that over and line it up right over top of that pink stripe, so that I can have that halo effect on the inside of the window. For my background, I've got a piece of pale blue cardstock, and I'm going to add a hillside with the stitch hillside borders, and then I'll just trim off any excess. I've added some foam tape to the back of my plaid panel, so I'm going to peel off the backer sheets from the top section and line that up, and I can see that the background was poking over the top, so I'm just going to grab my scissors and trim off a little bit, and then I can line that back up and pop that down into place. Then I'll grab my images and add a little liquid glue to the back of those, and I'm going to stack the tree stump first, and then I'll add my mama and baby owl right on top of that. Just make sure everything is lined up nice and straight and press that down. For my sentiment, I've got a piece of scrap cardstock, and I'm stamping out the sentiment that says Happy Mother's Day in some Lawn Fawn walnut ink. And then while I have my MISTI out, I'm also going to stamp the inside of my card. I'm using bubblegum ink to stamp the additional large owl and the sentiment that says, I will always love you. Very sweet. I'm using Lawn Fawn's Ballet Slippers cardstock, scored and folded to a standard size card, and then I just peeled off the release papers and added some liquid glue to the back of my focal panel. And I'm just lining that up, making sure it's nice and straight before I press that down into place. I die cut my sentiment with the Everyday Sentiment banners, and I just shifted that and ran it through a second time to trim off that banner and make it a little bit shorter than the die. And I'm going to add a little liquid glue to the back of that and line it up right underneath our window. As a final embellishment, I'm going to take some Studio Katia iridescent crystals. This is a mix, so there's a nice selection of sizes. And I'm going to adhere those down to the card front using some Ranger Multimedia Matte and a pick-me-up tool. This is really handy for just picking up those little gems or sequins and then just setting them back into place inside the liquid glue. And I find this liquid glue works really well for sending things through the mail. And I decided to add one more tiny gem, kind of overlapping that little heart cutout on the tree stump. And that is going to complete our card for today. There's another peek at the inside. And I think those gems are the perfect accent. They really pick up the color of whatever you put them on. So thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, please be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Your support means the world to me. Here's 2 extra videos you may also enjoy, so hopefully those will tide you over until my next one. Until then, I hope you all have an amazing day, and I wish all you moms and daughters out there a very happy Mother's Day. Bye-bye.